Hey guys, so I wanted to do another bite-sized video on A Course in Miracles. And what I want to talk about today is the very essence of the Course. And the very essence of this Course is silence and stillness. That's the essence of this Course. Everything else is crap. Everything else is a script that the ego is running in the world, in your mind. And of course the world is in your mind. So all the noise and all the movement and all the form is an ego script, and the only thing that's real is the silence and the stillness in your mind. Because the silence and the stillness is the Holy Spirit. It is the sacred silence and stillness that says nothing happened. And nothing's happening now. And that's what the essence of A Course in Miracles is. We could sum up the whole course by saying, you bring everything that's not the silence and the stillness to the silence and the stillness, to be undone by the silence and the stillness until there is only the silence and the stillness that says nothing happened. There's nothing more important in your life than you attuning yourself to that silence in your mind. It's the most significant thing you can do in this incarnation, is to become familiar with that silence and stillness inside of yourself. The entire workbook is training you to connect with that silence and stillness inside of yourself, and to be able to hold it no matter how busy you are, no matter how upset you are, no matter what's going on in your life, that you will at the same time have an awareness of the silence and stillness inside of you. And that silence and stillness is the Holy Spirit. So yes, you're aware of the illusory form and movement and noise, but simultaneously you're aware of the silence and stillness. That's the entire purpose of the workbook of A Course in Miracles, is to be able to connect with that. Why is that so important? Because it is only in the silence and the stillness that we retain the memory of God's love and oneness. So the really incredible thing is that when you really grow your awareness of the silence and stillness, what you discover is that within that silence and stillness is love. It is an abstract, non-specific love. And what I mean by that is that nothing is doing the loving and nothing gets loved. It is just love. It is love itself, abstract and non-specific, no lover and no loved. It's love itself. Ultimately, I think I'm an individual. I'm a separate individual with private thoughts, and I have an insane voice in my head, and I identify with it, and I call it Keith, and everyone else calls it Keith, and that's all a lie. So that's the ego. Now, ultimately, enlightenment, or living in the real world, is understanding that Keith's an illusion. The thoughts are put there by the ego. It's a script, and I've identified with the thoughts, and therefore I think I am the thinker. But enlightenment is realizing that you're not. That's not what you are. We believe it's what we are, but believing it's what we are doesn't make it true. It's a delusion. It's a dream. And so ultimately there is no Keith. And so when we go into the silence and stillness, it's not like Keith is being loved. Ultimately, it is just love itself. God is perfect oneness. So, even with heaven, it's not like there is a lover and a loved. There is just love itself. And that's what heaven is. Love itself. not with a lover and not with a loved. There is just love. And that's the love that we discover within the silence and stillness of ourselves. So, when we talk about this silence and stillness, we're talking about the same thing that I've been saying about the observing presence, the part of us that can sit in the cinema with Jesus and watch the movement and the noise in the world, and the movement and the noise in our thoughts, and the movement and the noise in our emotions, and that can be the non-judgmental awareness of it. We're talking about the same thing. This is the stillness and silence of your mind. So again, this observer in the cinema is the non-judgmental awareness of the noise and the movement. So non-judgmental means there's no opinion, there's no labeling, there's no evaluation, there's no judgment. There is simply being the space for it, being the awareness of it. That's the silence and the stillness that we're talking about. So what we really want to do in our life is cultivate the ability to hold that silence and stillness in our mind at all times. Because again, that is us in the cinema with Jesus or the Holy Spirit, being the non-judgmental looker, that which looks without judgment. And there's a few ways that I want to talk about doing that can really help. When you are interacting with people, the people are the form, and that's an illusion. I mean, there's only one of us here. And what you're talking about, that's the noise, that's an illusion. And what you're doing, the movement, that's an illusion. This is all happening in the dream. Now, we're not asked to deny the dream. We're not asked to wake up from the dream. All we're asked to do is know we're dreaming. And you can do that by holding an awareness of silence and stillness in your mind in the midst of the noise and the movement. So when you're involved speaking with a person or with people, something I do often is I would be aware of the silence in the room out of which the voices come, the stillness out of which the movement arises and into which it returns. And even as someone speaks, that you're aware of the silence out of which the words come and into which they return. You're aware of the space between the words as they're spoken. This is a very powerful way of keeping you in touch with the silence and stillness inside of yourself. And in truth, the only thing that's happening is the silence and stillness. Everything else is the ego script. So just hold an awareness of what's real, even as what's not real is happening. And that's a very powerful practice. And it's also something you can do by yourself. If you're reading a book, become aware of the space between the words. If you're watching television, be aware of the silence out of which the noise and the movement comes and into which it returns. So always in life to find ways of holding silence and stillness in the back of your mind as a witness to the noise and the movement that's going on in the world. Because fostering your connection with that silence and stillness, this is the very essence of the Course. Because like I say, the whole Course can be summed up by saying, nothing's happening. All the noise and the movement is an illusion. Now again, you're not asked to deny it. I mean, we are experiencing it, and we can't just flick a switch and turn that off, and we're not asked to. But we are asked to understand that that is the illusion, and that the truth is the silence and stillness within us, because that silence and stillness is the peace that surpasses all understanding. That's what heaven is. silence and stillness. Now our ego rebels against that because it believes it's the noise in its head, and it believes that its salvation lies in pursuing the noise and the movement of the world, and possessing the forms, and being able to cling to the forms and hold on to the forms and fight for the forms. So that's all the ego's lies in her head. The truth comes down to one thing: the silence and the stillness. Well, so when we're living in the real world, all that's going on in the mind is silence and stillness. And that's what salvation is. Salvation is the silence and the stillness. It's not the noise. It's the absence of the noise. And within the real world, you still function. And see, ideally, when you connect with that silence and stillness, when you connect with the Holy Spirit, the experience is not then that I, Keith, start acting from a loving place. I mean, that egos can't be loving, right? So when you connect with silence and stillness in yourself, and then therefore be aware of it in other people as their right mind, loving action happens through you. It's not what you're doing. A really good way of kind of thinking about this is that, when you connect with that love and spaciousness, Jesus acts in a loving way through you. It's really kind of erroneous to think, oh, Keith Den is the holy ego. That's not really it. It's much more a sense that you step aside and love expresses itself through you. And so therefore, when we get to the real world, love will express itself through a body, an illusory body, which is a communication device. Well, it's not a communication device for Keith, because Keith doesn't exist. It's an insane voice in my head. It's a false sense of identity. It's an artificial intelligence. It's a program that's running there, put by the ego, so Christ thinks he's a thinker and won't wake up to the fact that there is no separation. There are no separate people. So really it's about, in the real world, you have the Holy Spirit working through an illusory body, but it won't be Keith that's doing it. I'll be the witness of love happening through me. And that's really what we're striving for here. Now, we're all a long way off from the real world, but we can foster our identity in the silence and stillness. And like I say, when you connect with people, be aware of the silence and stillness in yourself, connecting you with the silence and stillness in them. Use little anchor points like noticing the space between the words, being aware of the silence in the room out of which the noise all comes and into which it returns, reading spaces between the words, watching television, studying, whatever it is. It's just to have that awareness of the space around the form, the formlessness out of which the form comes and into which it returns, the silence out of which the noise comes and into which it returns, and the stillness, within which movement arises and subsides. So finding ways of anchoring silence and stillness is really helpful. So, be aware of it inside of yourself, and then have the symbolism of the dream world, and find ways of having that reinforced for you, holding that awareness of silence and stillness, because that's the meaning of life. There is nothing more important for you to do in your life than to attune to and anchor that stillness and spaciousness in your mind, which is the Holy Spirit. That is the correction. You're bringing the noise and the movement and the form to the silence and stillness, which says nothing's happening. Nothing ever happened. God is. So the silence and the stillness is the key to everything. Okay, so I hope that proves helpful, and I look forward to a discussion with you in the group. If anyone's watching this on YouTube, we do have a Facebook group called A Course in Miracles with Keith. and that's where we can maybe discuss things that are brought up in videos, and where we have posts that we throw around and have a discussion about. Thanks for your attention, everyone. Have a good day.